Greetings, social justice warriors and professor to the stars. I am Beth Capstaff, reporting from an undisclosed location to tell you all about the article in the Colorado Sun. It's a doozy. Donor-conceived Coloradans would be able to learn their biological parents' identity under new bill by Shannon Najmabadi. So, what the article is talking about is a policy, is a bill, the Senate Bill 224, which would be the first of its kind nationwide. And it would require fertility clinics to take steps to ensure that donors could not be used to establish more than 10 families, as well as establishing some more regulations on who can donate. So here it says, if the bill were to pass, Coloradans who are conceived after 2024 would be able to learn the identity of their biological parents when they turn 18. And historically, or currently, sperm and egg banks have very little regulation on the federal level. The only thing that the federal level requires is that sperm and eggs are tested for communicable diseases. So the donors are not... their information is not verified in terms of their education or their medical history, which I think is the most important part of this bill. So people have little to no verified proof about what the health of that egg or sperm is. So basically kind of the, I think, social problem right now is if we're passing this policy, you'd be weighing the privacy of the donor versus the right of the future child to know basically 50 to 100% of their medical history and, predispositions and things like that. And also how socially responsible it is for someone to be able to father or mother an unlimited amount of children. So it's definitely something to discuss. So like any bill or any policy, there are arguments for and against it. Some of the arguments against are talking about removing the promise of forever anonymity. However, now that things like 23andMe exist, that can't really be promised in general. So I'm not entirely sure if that's a specific reason. And the arguments against the bill claim that the horror stories of dozens and dozens or hundreds and hundreds of children fathered by or mothered by a certain individual is very few and far between. So I guess that's the argument that is Sean Tipton of the American Society for Reproductive Medicine called a solution in search of a problem. So that's kind of their argument. Also, they are fear that potential children could essentially dox these donors. So it could prevent more, I guess, high quality donors from coming forward because they don't want their privacy encroached on. And also, if you really do have quite a few children you're fathered, you might be the donor, this is me speculating, but the donor would probably be receptive maybe to one or two children, but then when dozens come out of the woodwork, that might not be as appealing. And also, how would out-of-state adoptions work in terms of the regulations or the requirements? And then some of the arguments for are that you will have more regulations, like you have to be over 21 years of age. There will be more verified information shared between the donor and the recipient parent. So even before the child, so that could eliminate even like the child having to look at anything because they could have that conversation beforehand. They would require clinics to keep records forever, and the donors would have to check in medically every 3 years, which I can see people like lashing back on that, but that is interesting. And I think the most important is that any non-identifying medical info can be released before 18. So if it's not identifiable, the kids can learn, what could be wrong or what they could be predisposed to, which I think is very important. And just a last little snippet of information is Tyler Sniff, the VP of U.S. Donor Conceived Council, talked about how learning you have 100 half siblings can be very dehumanizing and a loss of individuality. He compared it to feeling like a widget in a factory being cranked out. He specifically learned through Ancestry.com that his father was a donor. He also died of a drug overdose when he was 36. So it's obviously a very specific example, but that could be kind of some of the arguments for why that would be a good thing. I feel like in any argument I could make for both sides, but I don't really see how it could be terrible for a child to receive non-identifiable medical information, things like propensity for heart disease or diabetes or mental health concerns. That to me is the biggest one. So that is not necessarily identified. Like, you don't have to give out any other information than those things, and I think that could only be helpful. And in a way, it could aid the privacy of the donors, because then the kids won't go looking for them, because they kind of have what they need in terms of that respect. So I'm for this situation. I don't know all the ins and outs of the policy yet. I definitely will be following up and checking out how it's going. So I guess my question would be, do you think this is a really, in terms of weighing the rights and privacy of the parents, the donor parents, do you think it is equivalent to the right to access basic information and valuable information of the child? So that's kind of my question for you guys. Which one is it? True equivalency. Thanks.